So today we're going to be talking about commercial banking interviews. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of content available online talking about the commercial banking interview process. Whereas for investment banking, there's literally hundreds of different vault guides and articles really helping you prepare for that type of interview. So this is a video for people who are interested in going into the commercial banking space, want to be a commercial lending officer, a credit analyst, a commercial banking associate, so that kind of area. Now, the first thing, of course, is understanding what commercial banking is. And unfortunately, not a lot of people understand what commercial banking is. It's amazing to me how, you make it to the final round and you're just like, well, if you were to really directly ask me what commercial banking is, I probably couldn't answer that question confidently because I don't know it myself. So you need to have a solid understanding of that. So the commercial banking space is very broad, and that's why the first thing you need to do is when you're going into an interview, understand the group that you're interviewing for within the commercial banking department. Is it agricultural lending, equipment and asset-based lending, small to medium-sized business loans, partner capital and shareholder loans where you monetize shareholder wealth to buy exiting shareholders? Is it franchise financing to help maybe a McDonald's owner, buy second chain? Is it working capital and treasury management services to really help manage working capital to pay off accounts payable and accounts receivable, right? So it depends on really where within commercial banking you are. And these are some examples. There are many more segments of the space. So it is very broad and you need to understand where you're going to be working in. But if you really wanted to simplify what investment banking is, it really is the lending and credit management services to support businesses. So what are some of the skills needed to succeed in the industry? Well, first and foremost, you are in a more client-facing role compared to an investment banking analyst. So you need to have outstanding sales and closing skills. You're working on, it's a deal-based kind of job. So you're going to be closing different loans. And so those loans need to be closed. And most of the time, you're encouraged to close them on a quicker basis because the more you leave open, the more potential competition can come in. So another bank can offer a more competitive loan package, and therefore you lose a potential client. So you need to have great sales and closing skills. At the same time, as you climb up within the commercial banking industry, you won't be just managing one loan, one relationship. You'll be managing between 50 to 100, maybe even 200 different loans, right? And so portfolio management skills are very, very important. At the same time, negotiation and communication skills are the foundation of the job. You need to be confident. You need to understand how to communicate your objectives, communicate your perspective, and the fundamental relationship that exists between a commercial banker and a business is that, look, I'm giving you money. I'm confident in you growing, because if you grow and you succeed, I succeed as well because you pay me back my money and at the same time interest, right? And I make money off that. At the same time, you do need credit skills. Some of that can be learned on the job, but you have to understand, can this business take on X amount of dollars? So that's the focus. And at the same time, you have to establish and maintain a referral network to generate leads. And this is a more front-facing side of commercial banking. So if you are a commercial lending officer looking to source deals, if you are an analyst in more of the lending side, so maybe merchant lending, on that side, you're seeking businesses and offering competitive loan packages. So you need to be more of a sales guy. Go out, generate leads, go to different conferences and talk to businesses and really talk about the benefits that, new working capital could offer that respective business. Now, the thing to remember in general is that with commercial banking interviews, it's much more behaviorally focused. So whereas with IB, there's probably a 60-40 balance between technicals and behavioral, with commercial banking, it's much more, I'd say, 80-20. I don't want to say numbers, actually. It's not good to say numbers. But at the end of the day, most of the time, it's about finding out who you are. Can you really hold a conversation? Are you able to really work together with a team and manage a certain portfolio? Because you're probably going to inherit a portfolio, especially if you're in a larger organization. So those are the big things, the soft skills and your ability to present information and communicate expectations to clients is very, very important. Whereas the analytical skills, if you've already done financial courses in school, that's probably sufficient. Brush up on your ratio analysis and all that kind of stuff, and you'll be ready. And I'll go through that later on in the video. But more of the advanced analytics, the different programs that commercial banking groups use, that will be learned on the job. So the focus going into the interview is be more focused on the behavioral side of the interview. So having a clear understanding of how SMEs work is essential to getting the job. So at the end of the day, commercial banking is where a bank accepts deposits and they have this pile of money. And so they put that money to work. They lend it and they make a spread on the difference between what they pay on the deposit and what they earn on the money that was lent. And then that pays for the bank and makes the profit and all that kind of stuff. So that's the basic function of commercial banking. Now go out and do the next thing. Understand how businesses take out loans. Understand their pitch process. Understand their fears when they go to the commercial banking officer. Understand why this money can help them. How expanding working capital can really help them meet their obligations and defer the accounts payables to therefore have more cash and generate and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. So it's really important to have a basic understanding of how businesses operate and how loans can help businesses grow. And so in that sales role, by communicating to your hiring manager that you have a basic understanding of how businesses are run, that is very, very valuable. The second area of focus is the ability to talk about the different credit offerings. So this means understanding the different types of loan offered, what working capital management means, how treasury services can help businesses, and etc. So the focus on that side is just general understanding of what credit is. And credit is not just a loan. There are different types of loan. Is it subordinated? Is it just bank debt? What are the covenants behind that? And so actually the next slide, here are some key terms that you should probably know if you're going into commercial banking. What is term debt, subordinated debt, loan covenants, asset-based loans, mezzanine financing. I've made a lot of videos. A lot of my videos on my channel cover these different topics. High yield debt, which is also junk bonds. What's net working capital? How you define net working capital? Management buyouts, inventory financing, franchise financing, a revolving credit facility, and or owner financing, right? So all of these different credit related terms you should know if you are going into a commercial banking interview. Now, some early interview questions, and these ones you probably are already prepared for if you've been in an interview before, are the basics. They are, why are you interested in our bank, which is very important to really communicate what distinguishes them among other employers in that same industry. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What do you like to do outside of work? So your hobbies. In your own words, what is commercial banking? That's a big one, and you need to know that. And talk about a company you admire. And I talked about having a basic understanding of what business is. Well, this is the best way to really help the interviewer see. Can you really talk about a business rather than just say, I like Nike because I have Nike shoes? So first, one of the big questions, and now I'm going to go through 5 key questions that you need to know. The first big question is, why commercial banking? So you need to demonstrate that you're motivated, that, this isn't just like a second job. Even though maybe it's like your backup plan and, your main idea didn't work, you still need to show that motivation and show that dedication. So commercial banking plays an important role in providing the necessary capital to help businesses meet their short and long-term goals. Being able to communicate the importance of this function is valuable. So talking about commercial banking, providing the necessary financing for businesses to grow is the basic function of commercial banking. At the same time, with commercial banking, you're learning about what business needs are and how they change over the growth cycle, how you can gain exposure to different industries. So there's commercial real estate banking, there can be manufacturers, there can be retailers. So there's tons of different industries that they get exposed to. And this deal-based workflow where, if you're hungry for change, and at the same time earning and meeting the next deal, and you really want to seek that kind of accomplishment-based workflow, well, this deal-based workflow aligns with your personality. And at the same time, it's a rewarding experience of helping businesses grow. So that's really the main pitch for why you are interested in commercial banking. So this is very important. You need to communicate why, because most of the time recruiters will assume, oh, well, this guy comes from an Ivy League school. He has a stellar resume. Why is he applying here? Oh, well, probably his investment banking interviews didn't work out, right? So you need to communicate that you're motivated and you actually want the job. So the next question, very important, and try to spin any type of experience. Tell me about a past sales experience. Even if you weren't in a sales role, if you were in a student group, if you were in any type of social group where you tried to seek funding or whatever it is, the purpose of this question is to determine how strong your client's service skills are. And in addition, and this is the big point, you have the ability to deal with rejection. You understand the feeling of being told no and moving on to the next one, right? And part of that is, again, with the sales experience, you understand rejection, you have an ability to understand your audience, you can accept and move on from lost business, you can analyze a client's personality and change your pitch, especially when you're more on the sales side of lending, and you can source new business because it's a sales-focused role where you go to these business owners and you pitch them on the idea, hey, are you interested in some funding? This is what I can do for you. Whereas in a more credit analyst role where you're receiving just credit proposals, this might not be the main focus, but still is important, especially as you climb up in the organization. So very, very important. Spend any type of experience or job in some way to really communicate that this was a sales-focused role, or at least I had experience in sales. Now, a big one is, this is a sample question. Walk me through how you would analyze a $1 million loan proposal. And there are several factors that need to be analyzed, right? The purpose is to understand the business and determine whether it can meet its obligations. So the way I look at it is you start from the macro and you go to the micro. So you go top down. So you first analyze the business, you analyze the industry, so you get a macro view. You then identify the risks and opportunities of that industry and how it relates to the business itself. You then finally analyze the financial statements and tie that into your macro understanding of that industry. And then you determine the amount of debt a company can service, and you look at the ask versus what it can service, and if it's less than what the ask is, then you ask further questions, and you're in that seeking role where you're like, why do you want this much money? You can only take on this much. Why is there? Is there maybe a little smoke there? Right? Is there something? Are you very aggressive because you're fearful of something? Whatever it is, right? So it is it's a searching type role where you're always analyzing and trying to determine why the ask is what it is and what the business can actually take on in order to protect the capital of your organization. And so understanding the industry and the business itself can be split into two segments, the business profile and the financial profile. So for the business profile, you look at the sector, you look at the products and services, how's the competition in that? You look at the customers and the end market. So what are we selling to? Are we selling to distributors, or are we selling to the end customer, which is, a just some random guy on the street? What are the distribution channels? Are we using international distribution channels? What's the risk of, those distribution channels experiencing a bottleneck? And what country are we in? That's a big one. What are the rules and regulations within that country? Will they change? What's the government risk? All that. So that's, the macro view. And then the more micro view is the size of the business. So relative to the ask, what's the debt to equity ratio? What's the profitability of the business? That's a basic one. The growth profile. So is it expected to grow by 3%? Why is that? What's the base case? What's the pessimistic case? What's the return on investment? And of course, the credit profile itself. So what's existing debt? Can they meet those basic obligations before they can meet ours? Are they going to have trouble meeting both of the obligations, both mine and the ones they already have? All of these are questions. Again, it's a very research-focused role, regardless of whether you're just a credit analyst or the sales guy seeking this credit proposal. Both people need to understand the business